I will now recognize myself for 5 minutes. Mr. Ragsdale, and first let me thank both of you for your distinguished service to our country. It is greatly appreciated. As you can see here today, this is not a partisan issue. This is an American issue. Security is absolutely paramount, and each of you have, in the scope of your responsibilities and authority, a direct means to impact it. Mr. Ragsdale, you spoke that regulations had been issued to allow for detention exceptions in special circumstances in your testimony, and you also said that you had faced significant legal challenges with your department in federal court, and thousands of criminals had been released as a result. What is the basis of the challenge that you were receiving from federal court, and what provisions of law can Congress change to assist in solving the problem?
I think all of this has to be considered in light of the Constitution, the Fifth Amendment's Due Process Clause. It applies to individuals, does not necessarily may have to be citizens. So indefinite detention is something the Constitution does not permit. Our authority to detain people, whether it's before we have a removal order or after, is related to our ability to process them and ultimately remove them.
So
it's not for preventative detention.
We understand the lengthy detentions. In fact, not just in terms of unauthorized aliens that are in our land that have committed criminal activity, but we see it on a number of other issues with national security. What can Congress do within the scope of the Constitution and these precedents that we've had in the past to allow you to do your job? This isn't the first time since we've been wearing tricorn hats that we've dealt with criminals that are illegally in our country.
Again, certainly this hearing is helpful. Putting pressure on countries abroad to issue travel documents solves the problem from the right angle. It is not a question of necessarily more detention, but it is the speed in which we can remove people. So I think that is particularly helpful. Again, I very much take the point from the representative from Connecticut. There are things we can do better, and we need to redouble our efforts with the State Department to put pressure on countries to issue travel documents.
Well, in that regard with the State Department, there's been testimony here today that no real direct requests from State Department have been forthcoming to address some of this issue. Yet in April, ICE Director Sarah Saldana stated that with respect to the so-called recalcitrant countries, that ICE is working through diplomatic channels with its partners at Department of State to increase repatriations to the previously non-compliant countries, and that progress had been made. So my question to you, Madam Ambassador, is this: with which recalcitrant countries has the situation improved?
If we look specifically at two, for example, of the countries that Director Saldana raised specifically in letters to us this spring, we are seeing response from Guinea and from Liberia to resume or accelerate the removal, identification and removal of their citizens. There's a team from Guinea that has arrived this week to finalize an MOU with the U.S. government and to look at specific cases, interview specific individuals to make a determination of whether they are citizens and then document them. So those are two examples of countries where ICE has, on the record, but it didn't come as a surprise because we're working together, but they said, we are very concerned about these countries and want to see greater pressure brought to bear, and we are seeing the results of that pressure.
Okay. Both of you, I know, and you've stated here, and we've certainly seen the view from the members questioning today, believe that no criminals from foreign countries should be released into the American public. I mean, we all believe that. You've stated that. And so my final question to both of you is, what are you willing to personally do to prohibit these individuals from remaining in our country within the scope and power of your current position? Madam Ambassador?
We've described the fact that we work very closely with ICE on these cases. one of the things that I want to do is to look at taking members of my staff and actually having them work directly, let's say, at ICE, so that they're seeing the individual cases and considering, are there elements of this where we might be able to take some action, where are there elements of this and the other cases where we might be able to say to a foreign government, this aspect of this case clearly shows that you need to take action on this. In other words, what I'm looking at is how can we work even more closely together so that where there are opportunities to move a case more quickly, it'll be spotted and we can take that action.
Okay, Mr. Ragsdale?
So in addition to everything the Assistant Secretary said, we need to make sure that every single one of our officers who's responsible for this process is equipped with the best tools to do their job. And clearly that is with the access to what consular affairs can do, but even in terms of best practices around the country where we have consuls located in certain cities that are more amenable to issuing travel documents, making sure that we are physically putting in individuals who appear to be from a country that's recalcitrant in front of a consular officer. And then also just to make sure that our guidance is fully updated. We will, again, carefully look at what the IG has done and what the follow-on report has done and make sure that every best practice is fully implemented.
I think, thank you for those answers. And while the formal questioning is complete, I would like to recognize Ranking Member Cummings for any final thoughts from today's hearing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.